overwhelming. I don't know what to say.
Well, how was it kind of living this day knowing that you were depending entirely on what happened in that last game?
Yeah, the loss to HK was really sad. We really wanted to win, and we lost twice to them. But watching Fnatic win, and yeah, we were really cheering for Fnatic, and it was really like amazing watching them win.
Yeah.
Okay, so what went through Blank's mind when he put the wall up? I actually need to know. Did he say anything? Did he say goodbye or?
I think he just said it. Oh, I did a mistake. Like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, but it's really nice that you guys were able to grab this. Otherwise, you may have had to play another tiebreaker. Would you have felt confident going into that one? I mean, you still played a good game before.
Yeah, we're pretty confident. I think. I think we would have won. Like, obviously I say that, but yeah, I think we would have won.
All right, fantastic. Can I just get some final thoughts about your first split in the LCS? And this is a huge thing, making it with this lineup that a lot of people rather didn't really believe in. I can say it that way, and you guys just showed them all wrong.
It feels really good to come in as underdogs and winning. So, even though people doubted us, there were some people that believed in us, and I just want to say thank you to them. So, yeah, thank you for believing in us, I guess.
Okay, fantastic. You said you would only dab on air if you got to Worlds. Well, I'm going to do it for you. There we go. And we're also going to grab the fish show here. He's going to come in. You know, there's a first time for everything. He's just going to... There we go.
Whoa, where did he come from?
Because,
out of nowhere.
Because we have a full panel for our next game, a very important game for second place and for the quarterfinal bye between G2 and Splyce. So Fnatic has been locked in first for a long time, but due to Vitality losing to G2 earlier, we get that tiebreaker game. So let's start by talking about Splyce today versus Giants. Norscairn, did you see that game?
No, I don't actually think I did. We went eating. I was just relaxing.
No problem at all. But it was a very good game. Splyce was phenomenal in that one. Amazing. So they should at least have some confidence coming into this.
Yeah, the amount of plays that they did in the early game, especially on Xerxes' Zac, was just incredible. They kept diving the top lane. Rune didn't have any chance. He was basically stuck under the turret, and if you ever went out, you see what happens. Like, you have Niski even TPing in. And that was basically the story of the game. Repetitive ganks and the same play over and over again. But Splyce, they were confident and they were clean.
And the last couple of weeks, Splyce has become better and better. Norscairn, what is kind of your impression of Splyce right now?
Splyce seems like a really dangerous team. I would rather face G2, I think, than Splyce, like in playoffs. So
what is so dangerous about them?
They were really struggling like in the early season. I remember playing them, and I said in an interview they were not like a good team, but they finally got their stuff together. And I think their top laner and their jungler is playing really well right now. And I think Xerxes is one of the best junglers in the EU. So
I mean, that has been the developing story. Xerxes, not that good in the beginning of the split, let's be honest. But Defisho, how has he then developed in such a good player in the last couple of weeks?
We're seeing a lot more play around Odoamne in the early game, which really benefits both him and Odoamne, because he's actually doing well in the laning phase, and we see like tower dives being set up very effectively. I think Xerxes was always good in team fights, so it's kind of just benefited him that his early game got better. Splyce as a team learned how to play the early game, especially around top lane, and then Xerxes could always get to the point where he would actually be a carry. So very consistent, good overall performance from him and Splyce towards the end.
That it is, and they can still get that second place, but then they have to beat G2, and G2, they are the reigning champions. They got to this place because they beat Vitality just before, and well, there's been a lot of ups and downs for G2 Esports over the split. This wasn't up though, amazing. They beat Vitality in a very competitive game.
Yeah, they definitely pulled through, and it's just about sometimes like actually showing that you're worth within the moment. You know, like you can have a tough split, but actually putting through when it counts is a lot more telling than anything else, and I think it's a really good sign that they actually made that happen.
All right, and Wonder on a carry is the win condition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure.
2-0 now with
I'm not quite sure if GP is the answer.
2-0.
GP is not quite the answer, but I do think that putting him in a carry just puts him in a comfort zone. I think for G2, maybe establishing more comfort is good, because we saw what happens to Misfits, for example, when they tried to put Thangox onto champions that he was clearly not comfortable with. So given someone that is actually like coming from a different lineup, some more comfort bodes well, and I think that's actually good for Wonder.
I also really like that they actually played around the bottom lane, specifically in the game here, because they were like, you know, easy gank against a no flash support. They have Sion holding down. They can like set up multiple plays also because they would get rage played on their side and just like be able to win the 1v1 AD carry duel. So seeing them actually play around Janan for once, which I believe might be the first time in basically 9 weeks now. He actually ended up having a really good performance in the late game fight. So this might be what they're trying to do again, because they banned out some of the big AD carries from mini true packs. I'm not sure if you need to do it against Copy, but it could be one of the ways for them to win.
Well, Nurse Karen, you just said you'd rather play G2, so you obviously think they have a bit of weaknesses here and there. Is that also for you the bottom lane, or where would it be?
Yeah, it's definitely the bottom lane. Like, bottom lane is really important right now, and yeah, I think G2's biggest weakness is their bottom lane.
Do you think even if the bottom lane stays the same, but those other members like Perkz and Wonder consistently show up, they're still a team to be feared?
Yeah, it's a team game, but still bot lane is strong, but they have 3 other players, so their 3 other players carries them, they can win.
But in this game specifically, then it sounds like Splyce with Kobbe, the way he's been performing all split. He was actually the player that we talked about most in the first couple of weeks. He played out of his mind. In the first couple of weeks, he was almost the only candidate for MVP, possibly, together with Hansama and Perkz. Now, a lot of people have joined the ranks, but in this game, is it then again going to come down to the Dane in the bottom lane?
See, I don't think so anymore, because Splyce have been able to play around top lane as well. So it doesn't have to be, Kobbe needs to go to the late game and he has to be fit, which has been a good thing for them. I can definitely see the Wonder versus Odamna duel up in the top lane, which we've had for now 3 years running, become super important. I just think Splyce are the smarter team overall. And they've kind of figured out how they actually want to play towards the mid to late game, where G2, at least the last few weeks, have been all over the place with how they've been playing these late games. And it comes down to like 1 or 2 members stepping up individually, more than the team is like playing clean games.
Yeah, we do still have a couple of minutes to fill, because these teams had to wait up and then set up now on stage. Of course, had to discuss knowing who their opponent would be. Well, they knew who their opponent would be, but G2 just got off stage. So we'll have another couple of minutes to speak about them. So one thing that is a bit annoying for Splyce, they played the first game of the day, which is now 6-7 hours ago, and that is the reality, right? So they had to stay here. They obviously could watch all these games, but there must be a bit of fatigue. How do they pump themselves up now for this very important game?
Caffeine.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of emotions running through you, especially now. That's like you're gonna fight for second place. Like, it's also about just pride, to be fair. So I think for them, it's just, that energy just comes with it, with playing. So I don't think it's going to impact them too much.
No, and in the end of the day, you know that if you win this, if you push through, then you get an extra week to prepare for those playoffs, and you get to watch all your opponents, Martin.
It's basically the biggest thing when it comes to, the regular season, because getting first otherwise doesn't really reward you anything. But it is, of course, the fact when you lock in top 2 that you do get to skip that. And teams always talk a lot about it. You get to sit and watch the games. Maybe you get to join us on the analyst desk, which, of course, is the greatest reward during the quarterfinal when you don't have to play yourself. And then you get more time to kind of figure out the meta, figure out the opponent. And I also think just the fact that you are guaranteed to not have to play Fnatic before a final is a nice bonus.
Yeah, I think a lot of people or a lot of teams are looking at that. If we take a step back and look at both the projects, it seems to me that G2, if we look overall, they seem like they still have ways to go. They seem like they need a couple of different pieces of the puzzle to come to a coherent team. And Splyce, for me, isn't that far off. Is that fair?
I think just there are meta shifts, and I want to hear your opinion on this as well, Naskaren, but the meta shift that kind of happened where G2 early in the split could play a lot around Wonder and Perkz as the main carries. When that kind of shifted and it was just tank top laners and it was going to be more about the bottom lane, they never really adapted to it until maybe this last game we got to see. But even then, they had Wonder back on GP. So that kind of, it felt like that hurt them a lot. And the team we were so hyped about, like week 5 and 6, who were competing for first place, just dropped a lot. I want to see if they're going to play around bot lane here, but Naskaren, do you agree with that?
Yeah, they should. Like the meta right now is too good to not play around bot lane. Like, you have these hyper carries that are being played like Kog'Maw. Like last game they played Kog'Maw, super strong pick. Another ADCs like Tristana. Thank God for Reckless carrying and giving us the playoff spot. But yeah, playing around bot lane is really good right now.
Yeah, and we know like Hjarnan is obviously not a bad player. He plays Kog'Maw. He just did it in the previous game versus Vitality. But it is the question for G2. Are we going to put all our resources in there when we have a top laner? And if we feed him, he might take over the game as well. So I'm very interested to see what picks they go for and what strategy they go with. But it feels to me like Splyce has a bit of the edge, even though they've been waiting all day. Their recent results, they had a 5-game winning streak. They had a blip on the radar yesterday, but they had a fantastic game versus Giants.
Let's put it this way. If both teams play their average game, Splyce will win. If both teams play to their outer limit, I do think that G2 should be the favorite, because I still do think that the individual talent on that roster can pull through in certain games. And I would never count like a 4-time champion in Perkz out.
Well, that's a good point. That clutch factor in Perkz.
I don't think you can carry hard enough from top lane for Wonder to get
That's
a
why I
big
said
enough
Perkz,
edge.
man.
I know you said that, but I'm just adding more layers to it. I don't think you can carry hard enough from mid lane either to actually make the entire impact at the moment. Like a lot of champions like Azir, who could 1v9 early in the split, has been nerfed multiple times in the early game. It's a lot harder to do that. There's not a crazy Zoe running around one-shotting people left and right, or Ryze who can just use his stupid combo with ult and hourglass to escape any split push situation. So I feel like mid lane and top lane in that regard is harder to carry.
I mean, Zoe is... Caps just proved that she's fine.
He didn't do anything in that game.
Okay.
That was all the bot lane.
I actually do think you can pinch the AD carry pool enough, though, for you to actually disable a lot of enemy carry potential. If you take out the Caitlyn, if you take out the Xayah, if you take out the Tristana, I think you're in a really good spot.
I think we just get things like Jinx.
But
then you go to late game, right, and still
yeah, you hope for the best.
AD carry advantage could be...
But I think in late game it nullifies. I think the AD carry advantage between the two teams is actually mostly in the laning phase. I don't think that Hjernen is essentially a bad late game player. I think he's actually really good. So for them, getting to late game is fine. You just don't want to have a Caitlyn taking 15 turrets in 3 minutes, you know?
I mean,
so
would be impressive.
That is safe. Well, the players are almost ready, just a little more time, so let's get the predictions. Northscare and Splyce or Vitality, and why?
Splyce, better bot lane wins.
Better bot lane, easy peasy lemon
I'm going to take the
squeezy.
opposite of you.
Well, I'm obviously going Splyce.
So, hey, what if this could... Are you guys still tied in the prediction game?
No, I am like far ahead of you.
You're one ahead of me.
Are you one ahead?
It's a one, yeah.
Oh! I feel like...
we can just tie.
Yes, you could
she's
tie.
Really count?
No,
I'm going to make an executive decision that's going to count for the prediction.
G2.
G2 for
G2.
Splyce. All right, and give me your reasoning. Splyce, why? Yeah, worst case you tie, which is horrible for your ego, because then you're not the superior analyst, then you're...
I would love to share that with Maurice Stuck and Schneider.
All right.
Because Vetti's not there.
All right, Splyce wins. Why?
So as I said earlier, I think overall they play cleaner mid to late game. I think they have shown already with Xerxes in the early game that they can actually win on top side. I think also, as my good friend here said, better bot lane wins.
Better bot lane wins. Double Splyce. Why G2 for amazing?
I mean, I have to take the opposite, first of all.
Yep.
And second of all, I do think they have the Ocelot buff right now. You know, he's here.
He's Ocelot buff.
He's here. Yeah, I mean, he's a clutch player. You can say whatever you want about this guy.
I'm not flaming.
But
I'm just
I think
what it is.
he's actually able to support his team enough for them to actually feel comfortable on stage right now. Because he talked about like how the bot lane, you know, still needs some help basically to be part of the team. I think maybe his presence is actually going to alter that.
All right, well, the players are ready. We're finally going to find out who gets that second place.
Yeah.
Let's see it and head over to Artcasters.
Thank you very much, Shucks. Hello, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined at the desk by Andrew Vettius Day. Welcome to the cast for the tiebreaker. Really quickly, want to congratulate Rocket once again for locking in 6th place and give you an update and reminder. Splyce had side selection because they smashed G2 Esports the last time they met. Because of that faster win time, gave them side selection. They picked blue side. So Vettius, this is where I'm going to bring you in. What do you make of side selection to begin to pick some bans? Both of these teams having pretty big wins. But Splyce's win earlier today was way more confident, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I feel like right now, red side is the stronger pick because it allows you to get that counter, but also with so many powerful picks available in the current meta, by having red side, it allows you to draft 2 while only giving your opposition 1. But Splyce clearly have a strategy in mind, and right now their focus seems to be locking out the bottom lane.
Well, it definitely seems to be the case. Tom Kench, Cogmore already removed. Caitlyn and Sion the response. Reminder that this is the tiebreaker game, the playoff bye, the birth into semifinals. Whoever wins here books their ticket to Copenhagen, guarantees they will appear on our roadshow offline finals, either 3rd place or the final. And obviously the loser will be in the quarters. 3rd place, they will be facing off against Roccat. So Norskeren on the analyst desk is watching eagerly to see who his next opponents will be. The next 2 bands, Galio, and now Xayah. What does that set us up for first pick priority?
Well, you would initially think that Varus becomes the next highest priority in terms of AD carries. You have Caitlyn, Xayah, and Varus already vying for those top spots, but Splyce could look to early rotate a jungler if they wanted to. We've seen a lot of proficiency from Xerxes on the Zac, but looks like they're going for the Tristan, expecting Hjernen to perhaps go for the Varus. And what we can say for sure is it has been one of his go-to AD carries, even though he hasn't had the most success with it during the regular season.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be the case. And that Tristana worked wonders for Reckless in the previous game against Schalke. And we'll see what it's going to do for Cobby. Of course, on the other side, G2 Esports locking in the Camille as well as the Olaf. The Olaf has been in the ban pool so much in 8.5. He's a hella strong jungler.
Let's think back to G2 versus H2K. Yes, they lost that game, but the early game lead that they got from Jankos' absolutely ridiculous pressure on this champion is just terrifying. I think G2 have locked in 2 big comfort picks for themselves, but Splyce, they're doing the same.
I'm so scared already for G2. Did you see what Xerxes did on Zach earlier today? Did you see how he dismantled Roccat? Just get like everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And Splyce, they're going to have the same combination. Niski going to lock in the Rise once again. So a lot of comfort picks, a lot of power. I like the options that are already on the table for Splyce.
Now, I feel like G2 will look to lock in their mid laner here, allow Splyce to ban away 80 carries, and then bring out the surprise Sivir. I'm looking at the composition that they've drafted themselves right now, and you have carry in the top, carry in the mid, and you've kind of got an early game jungler in the form of the Olaf. You do not need Hyanan to be that big carry. He can be a fallback, wave-clearing late-game tool, and Sivir typically does well into the Tristana, along with being a staple pick for Hyanan himself. I feel like that is the strategy that they're going for, and the question is, will Splyce read it in advance?
Well, that's the question. We've seen a lot of 80 carries banned today, in fact, throughout the course of, our last day of regular scheduled games. And of course, Alistair's already removed from the pool, so Kasing, at least one of his options is gone.
But that Alistair ban is really important because it's also considered one of the answers to Sivir too, because you can only spell shield one of the Q and E combo, which means that it's very easy to lock her down during the laning phase. Immediately, there's the response from Splyce. They read the play in advance. They're not going to give Hyanan that comfort.
Yeah, but then what's the next question? Where do G2 go
I don't know, I set up everything for
basket?
that, Trevor. I was really hoping that they would nail that one, but unfortunately Splyce banned it away.
But the thing is, they're reading the same playbook. They're thinking the same way. Now, is there something else that Hyanan can pull a rabbit out the hat with? I mean, Varus is still open and available if he wants to go that route. Cho'Gath is going to be the next ban, denying that option for Oda. Now, Swain has been a bit of flavor of the week. Obviously buffed on 8.5. Been picked several times, saw him a couple times today. Still available. Do you risk running that into Camille? Is it too risky?
I think it's a little too risky. Swain typically has a bit of a rough laning phase because he relies a lot on items and he's fairly short range, which means you want to put him up against tanks where he can provide a similar role to Vladimir and just poke out, sustain, and just be a nuisance. Putting him into a Camille would really give him a much harder laning phase, and for Odo, I feel like you want to go for the safer route. Go for this double tank comp. I feel like Gnar may be a good option. It can be a little bit rough, but I think that in terms of the laning phase, it should be a fine and safe option for Splyce.
Well, Odoamne has played that Gnar once the split already. The support for G2 Esports is locked in. It is Wadid's Thresh. That'll be the second time we see that pick, but very different type of team composition than what I've been seeing all weekend. Obviously, the fact that Olaf has been banned is a big reason for that. And over on the other side, Braum locked in for Kasing. So their top laner will be revealed shortly, and that will round out the potential double tank composition. Be a front line for Trist as well as Rise.
When you talk about front line, right now my biggest concern for G2 is that they don't really have one. Olaf will be building full tank, but he's surprisingly easier to ignore in the later stages of the game. And interestingly, Splyce going to put their trust once again in Odo, go for a triple threat comp. I feel like Vladimir, throughout the regular season, has actually been a pretty strong pick for the Splyce top laner, and he's more than confident to bring the challenge up to Wonder.
Question now for you, Vedius. Will it be as easy for Splyce to tower dive a Camille as it was to tower dive the Gangplank? Because it was the Zach Vladimir 7 hours ago that set us on this collision course tiebreaker. Because, of course, it was Splyce that won the game and G2 that won the game and allowed us to get here.
I feel like if Splyce are going to look to camp anywhere, it will be bot. Varus and Thresh, not the safest in terms of 2v2, a lot of all-in power, and I expect them to have the early priority. But you think about Vladimir and Zach, and what makes them such good divers is how easy it is for them to lose that tower aggro. They soak up a lot of damage, they have a lot of sustain, and just the all-in power. Think of how easy it is for all 5 of these players to get towards the bottom side of the map. I think they've identified Hyanan and Wadid as a potential weakness. If G2 do not properly play around them, they've been able to be exposed by many of the teams. And I think Splyce's game plan is, let's kill Hyanan, let's kill Wadid, and let's snowball the game.
And of course, on the G2 Esports side, what is the response? I know Camille's going to become that dueling split pusher later, and Olaf is a menace, but the synergy doesn't quite add up as beautifully as I see on the Splyce side.
Well, when you look at Olaf, one of his greatest strengths is his early clear speed and early dueling power. I want to see G2 utilize the fact that their bottom lane has strong early level push, and I want to see if they can take advantage of the fact that Jankos is playing this Olaf and can look to invade towards the bottom side, get control over the bottom half of the map, and deny these early dives that Splyce may be looking to set up.
Oh man, it sounds like a whole lot of things that he has to do, Vedius, and that means there's going to be weight on Jankos' shoulder. Ladies and gentlemen, for the final time in the regular season, it is Splyce taking on G2 Esports. This is the battle for the bye. Second place, the guaranteed trip to Copenhagen, and skipping quarterfinals altogether. That's what they're playing for. And the bonus that both teams have earned themselves, no matter what happens, they will be on the opposite side of the bracket to Fnatic.
And for Splyce as an organization, they've been in playoff multiple times. This is nothing new for them, but to be fighting G2 for an opportunity to get a direct pass into the semi-final, I'm sure the organization could not ask for more from this talented roster.
Definitely the case. Some question marks from the beginning of the split, and those questions have been very, very answered. And you know what, Vedius? We've been saying it all weekend long. Every game counts, and even this one does.
Yes, it does. And I just want to say that, you know, following that point we were just talking about, I feel like Splyce has really been one of the success stories of this split. When you think about all the roster changes that have happened in the EU LCS, all the new rookies that we had, all the veterans paired up with a couple of new players, some players who have a history of falling behind, Splyce was not really considered one of the teams that would rise to the top of the challenge. Everyone thought they'd be a middle-of-the-pack team, expectations weren't that high, but when you look at the cases of Schalke, you look in the instances of Misfits where they made changes and have faltered, it is Splyce that have worked through their issues and have now got to a point where they're fighting for top 2 in Europe.
Oh, I can't wait to see what happens when we get to the best of series, but still a week away, maybe 2 for one of these teams. As it stands now, no early game shenanigans. I'm looking at the jungler's starting positions. Jankos obviously going to be clearing out from his blue buff, working his way up. We'll see whether or not he can counter gank or react well enough.
It's quite interesting here that Xerxes chose to do his red, instantly go up to blue, and then do Gronk. One of the cool things that you can do on Zac is bring both these jungle camps together and fairly efficiently clear those out. This may mean that he's looking for an early gank topside, but more so he may be just going for a full clear throughout his jungle. Try and get that level 4, expecting Jankos to perhaps invade towards that bottom side. As you can already see, a ward going down. So G2 preempting a possible gank towards the bottom half of the map. But as we expected, early push in the favor of Hyanon, and we did with the Thresh and Varus that they do have.
Yeah, doing a good job keeping Kobe and Kasing just a little bit shut down and pushed into their base. Looking across the keystones, 2 unsealed spellbooks on the side of Splyce, Odawamne and Niski. None on the side of G2. And I'll keep my eyes on that minimap. Jankos is now up at his red buff. Xerxes going again for a very quick clear. He's inside the Raptor camp. And we'll get close to that level 4 very soon.
I want to take a quick opportunity to talk a little more about this Wonder-Odawamne matchup. It is a bit of a mainstay matchup in the European LCS. These two top laners have been battling for a very long time. And for Camille versus Vladimir, you kind of have a duo carry setup where Wonder is a little bit more of a split-pushing threat, but as a Camille, her role can provide value in terms of team fighting. But during the laning phase, what you'll see is, because she's melee, she will experience a decent amount of harass from the Vladimir. Fortunately, she has the shield to help, but we got a gank.
Oh, this is problem one-on-one. Summoning heal already used. The Sand Soldiers are helping out. A good overload onto Perks, but Perks clearly winning out that trade. Exhaust for heal used. Now up in the top lane, tactical sweep comes out from Wonder, the passive. Will block some damage from Odo, but Odo still ends up coming out, I think, better in that situation.
Looks like it. The Vladimir does have that sustained advantage, but I preemptively said that I was expecting a gank in the middle lane because I wasn't expecting Perks to just go in 1 versus 1. It feels like that after his poor performance last week and rectifying it arguably with today's Sion game, he's looking to be a little bit more like the Perks that we're used to seeing. That carry threat, the guy that can build his own lane lead.
And we'll see what Niski shows up. You know, the last time Niski played Perks, Niski was playing Galio. Xerxes was playing Ivern, and he had a very good performance. And this time round, Xerxes on the Zac. It is going to be an early top gank. Not quite as early as maybe we were anticipating with the jungle clear. Wonder, flashes available to him. Jankos and what did are waiting in the mid lane. All right, it's the race for first blood. No flash for Niski. He's an easy target. Xerxes charging up the slingshot, jumps in, interrupts the hook shot, pulls Wonder backwards, and Splyce get first blood.
Successful first kill there for Splyce up in the top lane. I wasn't expecting that many early ganks, but Xerxes and Odo seem to have developed a new friendship over the last few weeks, and they are setting up Odoamne for success.
The roaring Romanian duo stepping up when it counts. Zach and Vladimir, they did it earlier today. Once again, they've started Splyce with a lead.
They saw what Wonder did yesterday against the Unicorns of Love, and they're saying, you know what? We're not going to allow you to do that again. Wonder, he had set up vision in the river. Didn't see the path that Xerxes had took, because look at the double control wards you can see down towards the bottom half of the map. They're still there, allowed him to take that creative path behind, set it for a nice easy gank up top.
And of course, I did say the roaring Romanian duo. Take a look at their stats from earlier today. K plus A at 15, 5
wow.
and 6.
At 15, that's quite high.
Just a small CS advantage for Odoamne. A mere 52/S.
And look at that jungle proximity. Man, these two had a lot of criticism at the very start of the split, but the amount of growth that they have made has turned into monumental success. But now we're looking at Jankos to provide that same kind of success. Can he work with perks in order to find those opportunities, given that at the very start of the split, these two were the players that we were looking at to be the big playmaker?
Absolutely the case. And, you know, in Picks and Bans, I asked the question if the Zach Vladimir could tower dive Camille. They didn't need a tower.
They did.
Like they could just do it in the lane. Obviously, we kept our focus on the top because that's where some of the action of the trading has been. But I want to bring our attention down to the bottom lane. Hyanin and Wadid are still farming up a small advantage, plus 10 CS at 6 minutes. And Hyanin on the Varus, some question marks and some pressure on this bottom lane. If Splyce play around him to try and shut down Hyanin, a lot of targeted bans during the draft, and now is a fairly low mobility champion against Zach Rise. Trist, he's going to be pretty juicy targets.
Yes, he certainly will be, and the reason why we have these stats on board is because when G2 do play around Hyanin, you can see how much of an impact he truly can have. We got to talk about the impact in top.
The impact is Jankos gets a kill with the help of Wonder.
And I think he's going to be pretty happy with that. Jankos wants to return the favor. Former teammate Odoamne now feeling the pressure from Jankos. Off to a good start. This is what you need on the Olaf. Getting those early kills will definitely help out G2, as the gold is still very, very close.
Even in gold, pretty much even in CS. It's only the 10 CS between 80 carries that matters. And what I love about replays like this, it's just get run down, just get dunked, basically.
Yep. I wonder what happened to Odo's pool there. I wonder if it was on cooldown from perhaps a bit of an earlier trade. Regardless, river control was gained. Now Xerxes looking for a gank in bottom.
Party in the bottom lane. Interrupt onto Hyanin. Let's bounce. Not available just yet. It was used, in fact. I take it back. Wadid's now going to be the target as Cobby's already got the first kill. Here comes Jankos. He's flashed forward. Manages to pop the cell division. Buster shot will knock him backwards as now the bloblets are being targeted. They're squiggling and wobbling and teleporting together. Xerxes now going to bounce away to safety. Teleport gets channeled and finished by Niski, and he instantly summoning heals to back away. Splyce get the kill.
Yes, now Splyce make the gank bottom happen. Niski still doesn't have flash, but it doesn't matter. It ends up saving his jungler's life, so I call worth on that one. Splyce able to pull off 2 successful ganks now, as Jankos is the one falling behind.
I really like the proactive plays. I like the fact that 8 minutes in, we've seen several ganks, we've seen teleports. Both teams are playing to win and utilizing the early game tools available to their team composition.
And that was just so good from Xerxes. He saw that the AD carry was about to take the lantern, and he took advantage of it, grabbed Hyanin, threw him into Wadid, and said, hey, listen, I know you want to take that lantern, let me speed the process up for you, and then drag you back into my team, allowing Splyce to get that kill down in the 2 versus 2. The Ignite should have got the kill. There's the heal.
Close.
Fantastic. And now, where's Xerxes? Back him in the top lane, looking for another game.
Dun, 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 dun. 44% jungle proximity earlier today. Xerxes spent a lot of time around his laners, because he made it very, very useful and effective. 6 kills plus assists by 15 minutes. G2 Esports putting up a significantly stronger resistance this time round than what Giants did.
And now we got a kind of take a look back at how the early game has gone, because we talked a lot about expectations for this game, Quickshot. We said for Jankos, he wants to try and stop some of this early pressure from Xerxes, and so far he's not done that. Not been able to do that. We've seen successful kills in top, we've seen successful kills in bot, and that has allowed a healthy CS advantage to be built by Odo and an equalization for Kobbe. And on this Tristana, with the recent nerfs, that is very important.
Yeah, have you ever played Checkers, the board game?
I have played it.
And you take turns just stealing one another's pieces.
Yes.
That's what's happening, because look, Jankos is not in place to counter gank. Xerxes like, it was my turn, good old chap.
And now Jankos, though,
and Jankos
he's
says,
looking
now
to make
it's
his
my
own
turn.
move.
And take a look, there's the precision protocol as well as the Hextech ultimatum. It's dodged by the Sanguine Pool. Odo Wamne manages to survive a few seconds longer. Dancing, ring around the
Oh my
Rosie.
God, he gets
the tower
out.
survives. The timing of that W. And good sir, now that Jankos is done, it's Xerxes' opportunity. We did in Hjarden realize that they've backed away from the tower.
Oh my word, that was so good from Odo Wamne. Pooling at just the right time to get out of the Hextech ultimatum, allowing him to escape underneath the tower, utilizing the heal back from his ultimate as well. Perfect play.
And after all of these early plays and seeing the draft, I want you guys at home to predict who will win. Kobbe is going to get some damage down onto this tower. Who takes second seed? Who takes third? Hashtag every game counts. Log those votes and maybe we'll get to read some of them a little later. But as it stands, there's not a lot separating these teams, and they keep trading blow for blow. Xerxes is going to start off this dragon. There's great vision control in the river, and here's a replay.
So that pool right there, fantastic timing from Odo, and you'd think, oh, they can dive this, but smartly from Jankos, he recognized, okay, I can only tank a little bit more, I'm getting out. Wonder has cooldowns, so he can't commit, and they result in a no-kill topside. And I think this is fantastic. I'm so happy this tiebreaker happened because Deficio, he got a bit of flack. He went on the Euphoria podcast, he said, I think Xerxes is the best jungler in Europe right now. And so many fans lashed out, they said, no, it's Jankos. Jankos is the stronger jungler. Jankos deserves to be the title of the king jungler in Europe. Now the two are going up against each other, and Xerxes is schooling Jankos.
0-0-2, Cinderhulk picked up, utilizing the Zac kit flawlessly.
Oh, so well.
I don't think Xerxes has missed a stretching strike all day long.
And look, he's going for another gank. Hjarden doesn't have his flash up yet.
Dun, 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 dun. Stretching strike connect. Hjarden gets dunked. Let's Bounce comes backwards. Easily donated to Kobbe. And Splyce just making it look easier. Tower first blood available as well.
And this was the Splyce game plan. Shut down the bottom lane. Attack the weakness of G2, which is Hjarden, and we did narrow down that champion pool and look to punish it.
But Bedius, it is still a game of checkers. My turn, your turn. My turn, your turn. After tower in the bottom goes down, all of a sudden G2 are pushing mid. Now this might be the first time we have a bit of a confrontation both directions. Perkz with a beautiful Emperor's Divide sends Odo Wamne into the back and punishes Odo's roam, as well as G2 getting the mid tower. So again, it's just the plays and counter plays.
Oh yes.
But we haven't seen big team fights or skirmishes. What do we expect then?
Blood, Trevor. Blood for the Blood God and the fans of the EU LCS. I'm expecting nothing but action between these two teams. They are just butting heads constantly, and while Xerxes is making so many successful ganks happen, look at who's getting the kills for G2. The Olaf sitting at 1-0-1 right now. The Emperor of G2, Perkz, in the middle lane, secures himself the first kill and takes the mid-tier 1. This is going to make it a lot easier for G2 to get that deeper vision in and keep track of where Xerxes is trying to find these picks.
Well, this is Odo Wamne coming around.
Now, they spotted him on that control ward, and they saw an opportunity because they knew his flash was still down. Perkz goes in, has the support of Wadid and Jankos, and they tried to give Perkz the kill because they want to get this Azir as fed as possible. He is the late-game insurance that G2 can look to rely on.
Yeah, and of course, G2, they need Perkz to step up. We looked a little bit at some of the mistakes that Perkz has made, maybe trying too hard to carry at times, and cannot afford those missteps. Cannot afford to give away anything to Splyce. Because when I look at the two team compositions, I really like what Splyce can do later in the game. I like the synergies in their team composition, and of course there is scaling on G2's side.
But, you know, we've talked about
different.
We've talked about almost every player.
We have.
Right? Except the bottom lane of Splyce. And it's funny because for so long, they were our main narrative for this team. You know, you got to rely on Kobbe. He's the guy that really is the only consistent performer. And now he's 2-0-0 on Tristana.
Yeah.
One of the strongest mid to late game champions still in the game. Even after the early game nerfs she's received, as long as she gets through laning phase, she can still be that big carry. We already saw it from Reckless in the last game. And Kobbe, he is a phenomenal team fighter. So coming into these fights, it's really going to be about how much input he can have versus the positioning and playmaking that Perkz can make in these later game fights.
Well, Perkz, the man you just started talking about, gets caught once again by that point-and-click Q of Xerxes. Unfortunately, the Sunders start wrecking him, and Xerxes' cell division is popped. He definitely bit off more than he could chew. Niski's now taking damage from that Sunders, and Perkz is able to turn that one around without doing a whole lot. His passive ruining Splyce's engage. And the question that I have, while we know what Kobbe can do, while we've seen the level he can perform at, now Niski also is in my eyesight. You know, Niski has had ups and downs throughout the course of the split, and I think I prefer him on the supportive champions. I think I prefer him on the utility mids.
Double TP, Trevor.
Let's see what he can do on Rise, because one of the teleports is coming down. Perkz is already going to get some damage. That's a very good flash from Niski. He's got it this time, but he's caught between all of G2 Esports. The Lantern, and the response was great. Odo decides to jump back in. He's already used the Hemo Blade, the re-engage from Splyce. The fight is on. Odo's kept 4 members busy.
Odo's down.
He's on a killing spree. Now Kobbe's running for his life. Let's Bounce comes down, and while it sends G2 into the jungle, there's not enough damage. There's not enough support, and G2 are winning the fight. They're taking the lead. Defensive flash from Kobbe. The Unbreakable is buying some time. Kianen's rejoined the fight. Now Kasing is running for his life. He gets run down. G2 get the 4th kill of the engage.
You wanted to know what will happen when these two teams finally butt heads, and it turns out G2 are the ones to take the early lead. Huge team fight win initially set up by the double teleport from Splyce. They wanted to lock down Kianen, but a good lantern from Wadid keeps his AD alive. Now Niski is the one that ends up getting collapsed upon. Very quick kill for G2, and they kind of want to disengage, but Odo, he has other plans. Dives in, gets a 2-man ultimate off, and it becomes a battle on 2 fronts. Who can kill the front line first? Turns out, G2 win that one as well. Odo drops, Xerxes does what he can to escape, and then the chase continues for G2.
I mean, you look at the damage options for G2. Camille, Olaf, Azir, Varus, and they were going up against what? A Vlad and Trist? So 4 damage dealers versus 2, and you saw the impact of the fight. Perkz is not done yet. Sanguine Pool comes up. The Sand Soldiers are sent forward. Ooh. But the last strike, just not enough to come out. G2 have a 2,000 gold lead, and they're about to take their 3rd tower of the game.
Yeah, like Wadid could have committed a little harder there with the Flay. That would have been enough to lock down the top laner of Splyce and secure another kill, but he will get away. G2 going to be more than happy to take themselves the tower. Infernal Drake is on the board. Wouldn't be surprised to see G2 put a little bit more focus over there.
All right, the game pace is now a little bit more about the map. Splyce will finally get their 2nd tower, and it's the top that is dropped. G2 will get their first dragon of the game. It is the Infernal, as you mentioned. And the item spikes are starting to come in. Obviously, 1 and 2 items being worked towards. Rage Blade for Kianen, Triforce for Wonder. Definitely going to be a little more impactful than just a Proto Belt and Shiv plus Pickaxe on the side of Splyce.
Yeah, G2 definitely have hit some pretty significant power spikes, and they should be more than happy to fight right now, especially with the amount of control that they have over the map. No real objective on the board right now, and Baron a little too early to be looking at whether or not they can truly contest. So we'll just see a lot of farming for the time being right now. Unfortunately, quick shot, but I imagine the pace will pick up once the big purple worm respawns.
Who do you think is going to be stronger around those objectives?
For now, G2.
Right.
But as the game progresses, again, it's kind of like you have a lot of scaling options on both sides. You're looking at Tristana and the Vladimir, and typically Rise kind of falls off in the late game because you have such a short range, it gets difficult to get onto the backline threat. But when you look at the roster of G2, there are actually a lot of carries, and when Wonder jumps in, you can do a lot of damage on the Rise to lock him down and kind of burst him out of the fight.
I mean, that's actually a good thing for Niski. G2 will be running at him, so
very true.
It's easier to land your overloads when you have threats in your face. The question is, will Splyce be able to mitigate those threats? That's what we're going to be looking at. All right, 20 minutes on the clock, very shortly. It's still that 2,000 gold lead in favor of the 4-time EU LCS champions. Earlier this game, we said the Emperor of G2, the Emperor of mid lane. Hell, it's the Emperor of EU LCS. 4 titles consecutive for Perks. One of the most challenging regular seasons that he and his team have faced. Obviously, the team was rebuilt. 4 new players around it, new coaching staff. And for Perks, the real questions are starting now. Now that they're locked, second, third, now that they're avoiding Fnatic, can Perks lead his team to another final?
Well, that's going to be one of the big questions. Their first step will be to take down Splyce, get that buy. And in order to do that, they're going to have to regain control around the Baron. It has, in fact, respawned. Splyce have full river control towards the top side. You can see 2 control wards invested for the time being. They have control over the scuttle as well. And this means that G2 just kind of throwing axes in, being very hesitant to hard commit, waiting to gain mid priority. Have an idea of where Vladimir is on the map, have Hyanan push in towards the top side, and then they can look to move in through the river.
Well, for Splyce, very different game from earlier today. Obviously, much stronger opponent than Giants. And they're playing from behind.
Whoa!
20 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay.
G2 Esports, they've started off the Baron.
It's not here.
Teleport's available for Oda one man. Splyce, they're aware. Winter's Bite will tag onto Perk. Teleport starts to get channeled. Baron's low, 2,500. There's already in the pit. The challenge is there. Unstoppable. It's not being reset. Baron's stolen. No, it's secured by G2. But in the ensuing fight, Wonder is trying to lock down Kobe. Kobe's getting pulled away. All of a sudden, Xerxes already down. No Odo, first to run for his life. G2 Esports send their regards. Get themselves a double kill, get themselves a Baron, and they're getting themselves more kills.
G2 have no fear. They go for the 50-50 Baron, they go for the ensuing fight, and they just are relentless. They rip through Splyce, and they get everything they could possibly want.
20 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock. G2 used the mid-game power of their team composition to take another tower, another objective, and that 7,000 gold lead. I think the Ocelot buff is paying off.
It certainly seems to be. G2, oh, they are mad. They're tired of being criticized. They're tired of having bad weeks. They want to end this week on a 3-0, and this is how they are going to do it. Going for the 50-50 is such a big gamble. They stop hitting the Baron, all turn onto Xerxes, take him out of the fight, and then Xerxes even... Oh no, he doesn't throw the smite out. The Olaf secures it instead. Then Splyce, they're just forced to retreat. They don't have the engage tool anymore. They can't reliably follow up, and they're just forced to split apart. What confidence from G2 knowing that they are stronger at this point in the game and just saying, you know what, what's the best way for us to start a fight?
Yep.
Baron.
Force Splyce's hand, make them come to us.
Exactly that.
And then G2 didn't falter, they made the right call. They stuck together on the Baron, then they instantly peeled, and then they pressed their advantage.
I just love seeing that kind of confidence. So many teams in Europe have been criticized for not being able to use things like the Rage Bay power spike, use the Ezreal power spike. And I feel like this is one of the best examples of we've seen, like, hey, we have an item, we know we're stronger than our opposition, let's fight, let's go. G2 execute extremely well.
Dennis, we've had some very one-sided games today. Several of them have been very stompy, and it's looking like another one. 8,000 gold lead. G2 are already breaking open the base. Wonder's coasting in the mid lane. 4 members of G2 Esports are dealing with the bottom lane. And despite Oda doing his best to slow down Wonder, it is a huge advantage for G2 Esports. They are on the cusp, on the precipice of saving their regular split. Ocelot agreeing with the chants from the crowd. Let's go G2. But more importantly, 2 days ago, G2 could have been knocked out of playoffs.
Yes.
And 10 regular season games later and 1 tiebreaker, G2 are locking a quarterfinal bye, guaranteeing a semifinal, guaranteeing a spot in Copenhagen, and avoiding Fnatic as well.
Oof.
A
great week this would be for G2.
I tweeted that. This tiebreaker, both of these teams will avoid Fnatic. The G2 Esports Twitter account replied, actually, Trevor, Fnatic will now avoid G2 in the bracket. I appreciated the cheekiness.
Well, G2 have still got to end the game. And to be fair, G2 have thrown larger leads before. So before things are over yet, let's see what Splyce can do. They're going to have to concede the bottom inhibitor, as we just saw. They'll have to lose a couple more towers as well. The gold at this point would be seen as insurmountable. But you have the Tristana and the Vladimir late game insurance. How effectively can Splyce stall? How long can they wait until they get to these item spikes where they can really look to challenge G2 in a fight?
Well, the Infinity Edge has recently been picked up for Kabe, and there's an Oblivion Orb for Wamne, just a little bit of instantaneous power. And obviously, we've got the Zac engage, the Rise engage, if G2 overstep their bounds. And the wave clear is very strong. I don't see a banner of command on the side of G2, so Niski and Kabe can do a very good job of pushing those waves back. But there needs to be 10, 15 minutes of defense. This now becomes PvE in some ways. Avoid the enemy champions and just play and take what you can from Summoner's Rift.
You know, and I threw a bit of shade at Jankos early in the game. Xerxes definitely did have his number, but 100% kill participation from the G2 jungler. His contribution in these fights has been significant.
So if Jankos were to get the opportunity to respond to your shade, what would he say to you, Ben?
Probably throw an axe in my face and say, Bromarcia!
Tenderize your meat with that hammer of his on the skin. It's definitely something Jankos would do, no doubt in my mind.
Now G2, they're setting up for the Baron. It's not going to be spawning that soon, but it is the easiest win condition for them. They don't want to risk a dive because, as we've already identified, Splyce do have a solid team fighting composition. So G2 don't even want to give that opportunity over to them. 2 minutes now, gaining full control, steal away all the buffs, and just easily take this objective and hopefully win a fight if Splyce comes in.
I mean, you can see a couple of control wards in Splyce's jungle. This is G2 I'm talking about. Thank you, observers. G2 obviously a minute 40, gonna backspin the money, get their waves pushing and set up for this next Baron.
Yep.
Now for Splyce, Xerxes has stolen Barons in the past. There's a good comp if you can get Vlad and Zac and Tristana together in that pit. But there's no room for error, not a single mistake, because the gold difference is gigantic, the item power difference currently is gigantic. I mean, if you just compare 80 carries, Ied, Shiv, Zeal versus Rageblade, Blade of the Rune King, and Wit's End, an entire item completed ahead. So Hyonin is a great position right now.
Oh, he certainly is. He's going to be dishing out some serious damage in these fights. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can redeem what was a bit of a rough start for him. To his credit, he was ganked a lot. And now he is contributing much more. 10,000 gold lead in favor of G2 Baron in about 50 seconds time. And for Splyce, they just need to gain what control they can back over their jungle, but we're not giving them any leeway.
Seriously, look at that mini-map. It is completely G2 focused in the western quadrant. Control wards, zombie wards.
Every time Splyce try to get a bit of wards back, instantly clear down.
Yeah. So for G2, it's textbook play now. You know, use the lead, don't allow them into the jungle. This is Splyce. Don't allow Splyce to challenge your vision. And once the Baron is picked up.
Yeah, watch it how quickly they clear the Baron as well, because Azir, one of the best Baron taking mid laners in the game, with high DPS.
The on-hit Hyonin build as well.
Very, very true. And Camille can largely just sit in the bottom lane and create pressure, forcing Splyce to split apart. And here we are. This is it. The Baron spawns. G2 looking to end the game on this play.
All right, teleport available for Wonder. No teleports on the side of Splyce. Baron started. There's not even going to be a contest here from Splyce. Nobody can get into the pit. So safe, easy, secure. And that one was just melted where it stands. The Sun Disk is going to go down shortly. In actual fact, this Sun Disk has really ruined Splyce's day. An engage about 10 minutes ago. It almost took out Splyce.
It certainly did. The fun disc for G2, one could argue. Now, let's see how much more fun Splyce can have, because they have to go up against a 11,000 gold, Baron-powered, 502 perks that is in a bad mood and wants to secure himself a playoff spot.
Yes, as long as he doesn't pull a Corki engage like last weekend.
Yes, very true.
Where a little over-eager, you know, feeling the opportunity without the full picture. Of course, there was an invisible Kha'Zix that he didn't know about.
That's
so
fair.
I am being a little critical, but you need to
when you're an emperor, you kind of have to call those things out every now and then.
Exactly, exactly. Importantly for Kabi, he's now got the rapid fire cannon completed. Gonna need that to try and take out the minion waves. Odo's gonna use the Protobell to threaten some sort of engage, but keep your eyes on the minimap. 3-1-1 for G2 as they're using the Baron-empowered minions to push in multiple waves. The bottom inhibitor did respawn, and as it's 30 minutes on the clock, we're getting to the stage where that gold lead is slowly getting less relevant, but there's still a lot more that Splyce have to do.
It's going to be so much longer before it becomes irrelevant, though. Quick shot, and you can see that from G2 as Wonder. Now pushing onto the Nexus Tower. Splyce are being spread so thin. Here comes the desperation engage.
Okay, Xerxes with the elastic slingshot. He's going to start to target Wadid. Pulls him towards the control ward. Wadid is the target as the Locket Divine Solari gets tagged down. Finally, he gets popped. Let's Bounce comes backwards. Wonder's got himself 2 inhibitors with the help of Perks, and the rest of G2 have stopped the fight. Now it is a 5 versus 4 Nexus Tower defense. Splyce turn their attention to Perks. That's, of course, the Banshee's Veil pop. The Emperor's Divide comes out. Look at the Sand Soldier damage. Wonder is going to be forced to run away. Great hook shot will keep him alive. Buster shot. Not going to be enough for the kill. I really thought Perks was going down. Summoner heal keeps him alive. Realm Warp from Niski will deliver the back line. Jordan is the target. Finally uses that stopwatch after 30 minutes on the clock. And yes, Splyce win the fight, but at the cost of their base.
Exactly that quick shot. G2 get everything that they want. They sacrifice the bottom lane, but it is a worthy sacrifice as G2 happily walk away with 3 inhibitors down. They still have the Baron buff, and there is a Nexus in their eyes along with a semi-final spot.
Man, it's now 11,000 gold lead. Quarterfinal bye is practically in their hands. Yankos has already made one of those Pulsar hot dogs inspired by Deficio in the Euphoria podcast. And now he's going to be booking his flight shortly to Copenhagen for semi-final. You win, you're in the finals. You lose, all of a sudden you're playing that 3rd place match. But either way, you're in the Royal Arena and you get to try some of that Danish sausage.
Now let's see at how this fight kicked off. So initially, Thresh did lose his life as Splyce go for a bit of a desperate engage. Wonder and Perks were able to take the bottom 2 inhibitors, and then, ooh, just
so
not
close.
quite enough damage there from Cobbett. And then Splyce said, you know what, well, we can get a little bit of revenge. Let's kill Shannon again. That always makes us feel good. And I'm sure while it did make them feel good for a little while, they then come back to realize that the house is burnt down.
Yep.
I don't think they can claim on the insurance this time.
No, they cannot. Let's Bounce actually gets interrupted mid-flight as Xerxes' passive is popped. He gets taken out on the back end, and despite a lot of damage onto Wonder, Kobe's doing what he can. G2 Esports are just waiting for those double super minions. With 3 inhibitors down, it's a very easy siege. Wonder's got teleport available, so if he wants to back and join the fight, like you can see, he's doing so. Nexus turret, number 1, is getting dropped lower and lower. Kobe is being pushed away by the Sand Soldiers. Forced to jump onto the fountain and heal up. Odo Wonder now uses the Sanguine Pool. Ignite is going to take him out. There's the turnaround onto Wonder. He goes low, but he's not dead yet. Hextech Ultimatum comes down long enough to keep Wonder alive before he finally goes down. G2 Esports, the defending champions, take down Splyce, guarantee themselves a spot in the Copenhagens, and they're going to semi-finals.
G2 with a convincing win over Splyce. The early game was such a back and forth. Xerxes really did have G2's number, ganking left, right, and center. But it was G2 that came out on top. It was G2 with a decisive Baron play. And it was G2 that once they got that lead, they strangled Splyce with it.
That means Splyce finished 3rd in the regular season. Congratulations, celebrations between the players, hugs, former teammates, maybe former friends, now that rivalries are developing.
We've now got 2 Danes guaranteed going to Copenhagen, and both Fnatic's Broxer and G2's Wonder. Oh, and Caps, of course.
Caps, that's right. Gonna be attending the Copenhagen Roadshow at the end of the split. You can see Ocelots and Grabs on stage celebrating with the team.
You know,
it was a bumpy road.
Yeah, Deficio doubted the Ocelot buff, but apparently it's a thing. You know, that's why they win every finals, because Ocelot, the true king, is there.
I saw a fantastic message on Reddit earlier that said, G2 are undefeated in every playoffs they've attended. Now, of course, that's an obvious thing to say when they have 4 titles in a row.
For sure.
But last split started in the quarterfinals. Almost got eliminated by last year's roster of Splyce, that 5-game epic. That was, in fact, the best series of the entire playoffs in summer. This time around, G2 will avoid them for now and set themselves up for a clash. Second seed, semifinals, 2 weeks' time.
But we could see a rematch of this. If you just look at the seedings, let's say 3 and 4 come out of their quarterfinals of Splyce and Vitality, you would end up seeing Splyce versus G2 once more in the semi-final. And I'm sure so many people want to see that rematch.
Yeah, of course, it's important to remember. Splyce will play Roccat. There's one quarterfinal, and Vitality will play H2K.
Ooh, that's gonna. Oh, those
going to
are
be
quite
interesting.
ones.
Those are two explosive teams.
Because when Splyce go up against Roccat, you've got two teams that are a little bit more mid-late game focused, whereas Vitality H2K, I feel like you could have a lot of early game bloodshed with those
You can.
teams.
And also, when you look at those two teams, Vitality and H2K, they are explosive. They can be explosive in a good way,
Yes.
and they can also self-implode,
Yes.
as we have seen many times this
And
split
you've got
already.
two rather like young rosters in the sense, I say young, because I always think of Sheriff immediately, right?
Right.
But you also think of how long it's been since Promiscu and some of the players have been to playoffs.
Yes.
And you go up against a very young roster in the form of Vitality. How will they perform in a best of 5
Yes.
scenario? What kind of experiences will they have in being able to play in that kind of a format with that kind of pressure on the line?
Well, we're going to have to find out, of course. Quarterfinals and playoffs start next week. For now, though, we had the tiebreaker. We know our 6 playoff teams, and we know exactly how the matchups are going to play out. And for G2, it's going to be an interesting debate, interesting discussion around how good they are, how bumpy this road has been.
Certainly will be.
And I can't wait to discuss it a little bit further. But before that, we're going to chat to Law as well as Perks and Wonder.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. Indeed, very important victory here for G2. Guys, congratulations, Perks. What does it mean to you to know that you won today the Battle of the Bye?
Well, it's kind of a nice feeling. I was ready to go to quarterfinals after our last 2 weeks' performance, but today winning, like we played a lot, like with more confidence than usual. Like we were like pretty like decisive, even though like we're not that good yet in terms of like our knowledge and what we can actually do, but we were decisive with what we know and what we got, and it showed in our play today. And also, like I stopped inting. So that was like that's a good relief because yeah, the 2 games before that was really tough for me. So yeah, I'm really happy now. Yeah.
And Wonder, it must be also a good victory for you because you will be playing in front of your home crowd. What does it mean to you to know that you will be cheered by Danish players and crowd?
I haven't been to any, I haven't myself played in any event in Denmark yet, so it's going to be really exciting. I think, like I've been in the Royal Arena before watching CS when it was held there, so it looked pretty awesome, and I can't honestly wait to play there. It's really exciting, yeah.
So you saw it already. How do you imagine it full with people cheering for G2 and for you?
Well, I hope they will cheer extra hard for us since I'm Danish, but I like honestly I can't wait, and it's super relieving to actually make the playoff bye because we have been really bad the last couple of weeks, even though we had a really good like mid-split resurgence where I think we had maybe too many expectations and we forgot like the process in which like we have to keep improving and like not forget everything we've learned, and like we just tried to go too fast, I think, and that like ended up hurting us a bit.
You talked about your level, but I want to talk about the level of Europe in general because I think the level was stacked this year and the standings have been pretty tight. How do you explain that?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of an enigma for this split because a lot of teams, like as you can see, the last day, all 10 teams could participate in playoffs, which has never happened before. And it's honestly, I'm not sure if it's because of teams or it's because of the meta changes so much. Like this split, there's been more like mid-split patches than ever before, and there was actually not small patches. There was like huge patches, and that shows that the team that they had, like let's say teams who were winning in the beginning of the split, they just stop winning and start losing in the middle of the split because there's a big meta change. So it's combining with teams not being good enough and knowing what they have to do with meta changes, and it just ends up in a stacked split where the teams are actually not so good as we can see, but it just looks very close. because everyone is kind of like equally bad. Besides Fnatic, they're a bit better than the rest. So yeah, it's kind of like that. I see it like that. Yeah.
Okay, and talking a bit more about the meta, the patch will be 8.5 for the whole playoff series. What do you think of this patch so far, Wonder?
Well, this patch is for sure better than the last one. I think
How so?
it favored us a bit in the champ picks as well. Like I feel like I'm a bit more free. And honestly, like after learning the patch as well, I could probably have played like this last patch too. We just were not really sure about like all how the buffs and nerfs like really affected our play. And it's true that the last patch was more bot lane focused, and it's still like arguably really bot lane focused, which we weren't really used to as a team. But I feel like I have some freedom right now since I've learned the patch and we have learned like what our priorities are to really shine now.
And there was the Bannon nerf, of course, and we had the opportunity to see Swain in the top lane. What do you think about this champion since he was buffed?
Well, honestly, I've played Swain even before the buff, and I think it's pretty strong. I think a lot of EU top laners don't know how to play it, and they build wrong or they just choke on stage and play really bad. So, I mean, it was banned against me yesterday, and today, I mean, I went for the Kimmel instead. So I think Swain is really strong, and maybe I'll play it sometime.
All right, and last question for both of you, Perks. Who are you looking forward to face in semis?
Who can we actually face? Like,
Who are you looking forward to face? Who would you like to face?
I'm looking forward to face Fnatic in finals.
Oh, already?
Yeah.
So you see yourself in the finals already?
Yeah, I see myself in the finals for sure.
I think it's Splyce and Rocket we can face, no? Splyce and Rocket? Splyce or Rocket?
Splyce and Rocket. Yeah, I don't mind either teams.
How about you?
Well, I mean, for semis, I wouldn't mind a rematch against Splyce. I think that's the most likely scenario anyways, since I don't think Rocket is really going to challenge Splyce in a quarterfinal. But yeah, I'm also looking forward to just playing, because semifinals is still going to be in Berlin here, and I'm just looking forward to Copenhagen and playing finals.
We'll see about that. Well, congratulations again to both of you for today. And to wrap up this day, let's send it over to Shox and the analyst for the LCS post-game lobby.
Thank you very much, Laura. Wonderful job also. And welcome everyone to the LCS post-game lobby. After our final day of the Spring Split, I'm Shox, joined by Amazing and the Fish Show. This is going to be our last post-game lobby of the regular season. It's been quite a day. A lot has happened, guys.
Now we tie in predictions.
Yeah, what do you say about that?
So just to rehash, I asked the guys beforehand the tiebreaker, since the Fish Show was one game ahead of Amazing in the official caster predictions that you can check on Twitter. They both chose another team, and because of the G2 winning, the team that Amazing chose, now you're actually, so you could say, oh, those were not the rules, I won the predictions, but I don't think you're going to do that, are you?
I accept that me and Amazing are equally fantastic at predicting once. The important thing, as I said before the game, is the fact that the third analyst will not mention his name.
Wait, what's... Yeah.
I don't think his name is relevant here, but the third guy was really far behind. He was like down at the bottom, second last or something.
You know, at this point, like, you must question his color casting abilities, you know?
Yeah, well, let's move on, because what is really important here is what actually happened on the Rift and where our teams ended up after 9 weeks of play and one extra tiebreaker game. So, Fnatic, number one, that was, well, visible for a couple of weeks already. Yep. That didn't change. Now, G2 Esports managed to edge out Splyce and is locked in that second place and has the bye. And locked out of playoffs are FC Schalke 04, Misfits Gaming, Giants, and the Unicorns of Love. Now, we were talking a lot about playoffs in general, so I would like to take this moment to kind of wrap up the teams that fell out of playoffs. Where would you like to start, Martin?
Ooh, Misfits Gaming. Biggest surprise of the split, I feel like.
Biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, best of one. They, in my opinion, completely failed to adapt to the limitations of the team on stage. Because one thing is in scrims, you know, you can be as great as you want, but if you go on stage every time and you play differently, maybe just to lock the playoffs, you gotta then change how you're practicing and what you're doing on stage. Here I'm talking about less putting yourself on a timer, a little bit easier comes to play like some of the other teams succeeded with. So I think Misfits, from Worlds to this, keeping Maxwell, Fari, Hansama, so great core, keeping Hussein Moosvi as well. You need to be able to make playoffs. They did not. And I think before the season, everyone had them as a playoff team.
Yep.
So that's obviously the biggest surprise.
Not a #1 team, but I don't think anyone put them outside of playoffs.
Oh, no.
I definitely didn't. Like, for me, it was always like, I always actually thought that Maxlaw, as a jungler himself, with the worst experience that he had and with the shot calling experience that he gained, would have been able to carry that team, like, at least to playoffs. You know, like, I don't know how high, but I'm just disappointed in the fact that they didn't understand that sometimes you just cannot replicate the success from last year. And I mean, obviously I've been in the same shoes with Origin where like we had a different player coming in, like Power of Evil and compared to Peke, and I had to change my playstyle. And I, for example, failed that too until a long time into the playoffs. And I think Maxlaw has the same issue with Senkux now, where I think Maxlaw still thinks that he can play carry junglers, but Senkux can't deal with that at all and whatsoever. So you have to change your playstyle a bit and actually help your team win. And I think that's what Misfits, at least the core members, were not able to do.
Well, I saw Hussein tweeting kind of, oh, it's my fault, or he takes a lot on himself, because I also feel like, you know, it is kind of also a coach decision then, right? And pick some bands, he should then put his foot down and say, no, this is the way we should play.
It was just interesting to see how I think Misfits came in with the mindset that they would make playoffs, so they should keep playing what they consider the correct way for the entire split. And it makes a lot of sense. If you didn't make playoff, you might have a head start when it comes to playing best of fives. That's where they've in the past done really well, because they prepare super well for teams with Hussein and the coaching staff. But the fact that then week in and week out, kind of the same issues showed, other teams picked up a lot of early wins by literally saying, nope, for us, it's going to be late game comms where we just want to get as much scaling as possible because we don't think teams can close out games, and then we have good carries. Mm-hmm. Could have been an option for Misfits. They didn't go for it. In the end, it backfires. And now they have a very long holiday before summer split.
They do. I don't want to go too far into what should happen in this and that. It's all up to Misfits themselves and the support staff to see what kind of next steps they want to take. I do want to talk about the other teams as well. Giants, because that is a team that we willfully didn't talk about the last couple of weeks before, because they went in a dip after starting off so strong. And I think in the end, they still showed a lot of good things that we didn't expect from them over the entire split, and that they fall just out of playoffs. Sadly, that game versus Splyce, it was very much their own fault. It seemed to me like today, they just lacked that final spark to come into that game and put some fight up. And I think maybe it was just too early for that lineup, or the other teams were simply stronger.
I think they're, like, no offense to Giants, but I think they were just the worst team in the LCS. They picked up a ton of wins in the start, which they should get credit for. Yeah. Because they actually came in and said, we know exactly how we want to play on stage. We know what kind of drafts are good for us. We know we can trust in someone like Betsy or Ruin, who had a great start. But all those wins is actually what allowed them to still be in the race for playoff towards the end. Because we said this already. They only won 2 games after the first couple of weeks ended, where they were 5-3.
Yep.
2 games only remaining, like 4 to 5 weeks, obviously puts you as the weakest team of all of them. We also got to see that here towards the end, where they obviously got completely crushed. So I think they can overall be happy with what they showed in the start, but they would be very unhappy with not being able to actually progress from there.
Anything to add to that, Maurice?
Yeah, just like you can teach an old dog new tricks, and I think we saw that in the beginning of the split where they actually looked rejuvenated, but at some point age is going to catch up to you, if that makes sense. You know, so for them, like the spark that they had at the beginning of the split, they couldn't translate at all, because at some point that fire went away. Like you didn't see like Betsy carrying anymore. I don't know if he was carrying, that's something different, but like he definitely didn't look as good as he did in the beginning of the split, and Joko couldn't make the difference anymore.
Also Ruin, who we talked about non-stop the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, he came in and he won his lane a few times. They actually played around him, but we have to remember the meta in the very start of the split was super late game. No one could finish games. We were casting for 65 minutes. You know, so if you drafted the superior late game comp, you could often get there and you could then try and win games that way. They tried to change it, you know, play more aggressive comps, backfired every time. And they just couldn't adapt when the metas did, and that's why they ended up.
And it also became a very intense battle, right? We can't forget that it was blood, sweat, and tears for anyone 100%. To get to playoffs in the situation that they were in. So we'll see what they can build on, rather, going into summer. 2 more teams that we need to touch on, and I know it won't be easy to keep it short, but Schalke 04. We've talked about it a lot. Obviously, the big football project coming in, star-studded roster, fantastic environment, fantastic players on paper. Sparks of brilliance last week, namely, but in the most important moments, they didn't show up.
I think it's what Thunder talked about in this interview, kind of. I think when the roster came together, like a lot of people thought of them as like a playoff team, like, or like a good team, maybe even like top 4, whatever it is. And for me, like I thought maybe they're going to be a low playoff team, but because the issue for them, it's simply this: none of the players has shown any indication in the past to actually be able to step up to the occasion in terms of shot calling, in terms of leadership. Chachi is the only one that comes close, but a top laner cannot shot call for the team. There's no way in this today's meta that a top laner can have any kind of impact in that way. So for me, you need to have the jungler or support actually be the forces to carry that roster to a higher level. I think can't put that pressure on Pride. I think obviously can't necessarily put that pressure only on Thunder, but the combination of the two failed the team.
Sorry to jump in, but aside from shot calling and what happens in the game, someone like Vizicachi, I had definitely expected more from. And you can never tell if, you know, just the team didn't gel, so he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. But that is the kind of guy that I was looking at in the past, seeing his history to step up, take over those lanes, take over those games. Nukeduck, we only ever saw it in the first. We talked about the year of Nukeduck, but it didn't really come back. And you can never know what that is, but you have to assume it's because the synergy as a whole wasn't there.
I mean, one thing is synergy, another thing was how they approached the game. Like, Vizicachi got to play Camille twice this split, and then effectively just tanks. There were a total game or two, but otherwise just a bunch of tanks. So obviously the Chachi from Unicorns of Love, we won't get to see. And that kind of took him out of what was his former playstyle, and then puts a lot of the carry pressure on other members. And that's where they faltered, you know. They lost a lot of dumb games, which is going to hurt them a lot. But what's super interesting about both Schalke and Misfits not making it is every time we talk to teams coming into weeks about who's doing well in practice and whatever, Misfits and Schalke were highlighted each single time, especially Schalke. The amount of praise I've heard for this team, how they could just play cleanly, you know, beat teams 5-0 in scrims, and then they walk on stage and no one on the same on this stage can then take what they actually do in scrims. Can be nerves, it can be lack of leadership, it can be playing more passive, whatever it is. And it just falls apart. It's so interesting how some teams just cannot copy scrims to stage.
So, like, this is like a theory of mine at least. Like, but from what obviously when I played on Origin, I had so many scrims that I lost, like simply because we're still trying to learn. And I feel like that a lot of teams right now are trying to play too perfect in scrims. Does that make sense? You know, always like basically base it upon like try to figure out like what their game plan is supposed to be for the first 15-20 minutes. And they basically pre-plan all of that. And if one thing of those things goes wrong within the first 15-20 minutes, like the answer's not there anymore because they haven't practiced it necessarily. So the reactive play that you basically reading your open is something they don't necessarily practice. And I think teams like that have a lot of veteran leadership are the teams that are going to succeed in that kind of manner. Where, for example, So is someone that can always read the game because he's seen so much, and he also lays back in scrims. Like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to learn out of it.
Yeah, and it was also interesting because now we talk about the scrims and these kind of things, like Vander and Nukeduck coming over together as a duo from Vitality last year. Heard good things about Vitality in practice last year as well. Never performed on stage. Passive, couldn't carry, bad shot calling. Same duo moves over to Schalke now. And I'm not calling them out, just them specifically, but we are seeing quite a historic trend here where it's not translating on the big stage when it's supposed to. And a lot of the Schalke haters will jump out now and say, we knew these names wouldn't be able to do it, obviously, based on what they did beforehand. And it really hurts the track record of players like Nukeduck and Vander, that this now happens again, where they're not able to make playoffs in what I consider a much stronger team than Vitality last year.
We can only follow up. I still like this team very much, and all the surroundings and everything that they put on the map. So we can only hope that they turn it around, that it becomes a good evolution in summer.
You want them to succeed.
Yeah,
like,
you want
honestly,
them to succeed.
because
it's just the way to put
like,
it.
Just the whole project of it just makes so much sense, and I think it should be like something basically transcending Europe, because I don't want teams to get away with having like low budget,
bad
infrastructure, because it hurts the players, it hurts the viewership ultimately, because like you're gonna have bad teams that are gonna fall through at some point. So I want good infrastructure, good teams to actually succeed, and it hurts to see Schalke. It would be the same for Fnatic, to be fair, you know, if they would suddenly fail.
Sure. I want to give a lot of praise to a lot of the organizations who are actually bringing a lot more people on to help. Like, there's a lot of the guys who are sitting backstage when they're watching, and it used to be one guy. There was a coach sitting there, and that was it, nothing else. Now we're seeing like 3 to 4 people on almost every single team. Like, there's a manager, a sports psychologist, there's 2 coaches, or whatever it is. And that is really good to see from a lot of them. And of course, Schalke tried to do the same, but it didn't work for them.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. And one of those teams that always had their players very well surrounded is the Unicorns of Love, a team with a very big History in the European LCS. Falling outside of playoffs, I got a chance to talk to Sheepy and Yoel Dad, obviously the owner, just outside before, and he said kind of, well, you know what? It would have been hard to turn it around. Then we kind of knew with the start we had that it was going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So although we're very disappointed, we have to be proud of that 5-game winning streak and kind of what we managed to do with the players we had and what the team we had.
Yeah, I think looking at all the rosters coming into the split, I didn't expect Unicorns to be a top team, but I thought, you know, the lower end of the middle is kind of where they would play. So fight for number 6 in playoffs, maybe be number 7. I thought there were other rosters who were weaker on paper, but obviously with the 1-8 start, they showed they were initially one of the weakest, and they did not make roster changes, which H2K did. And H2K are now in playoffs. So they gambled on some new names, and that actually worked for them. And Unicorns kept the core, which I don't blame them for.
No.
But it meant that they couldn't get back.
So for them, it made sense to not make roster changes, obviously, because of the fact that they had brought a core from last year, whereas H2K basically had to completely revamp roster. It was like completely different. So they had a lot of tools to play with anyway, and then it didn't fit, so you exchanged them. But yeah, like it's kind of sad to see, like, because obviously from my perspective at least, like it feels like the whole organization or like the whole players always bleed with the team, and them to actually like falter in that kind of manner, because they could have won yesterday, they could have actually like gotten to a point where they had playoff contention. Hurts to see, but someone's got to lose, I suppose.
Yeah, someone's got to lose, and these are the 4 teams, unfortunately, that fall out of contention. We will see in summer in whatever configuration that may be.
No promo tournament. They're still here
no
for
promotion tournament. So, well, Joko said it would be not cool to just sit kind of on your butt these couple of months and see the other teams playing, and that is the truth. But we hope we see them back.
He deserved playoffs.
Yeah, I think we are of the opinion, like, we don't want anyone to lose in essence, right? But we do want the best teams and the best possible playoffs to happen, and that's what I want to talk about now, because we're going to get started with the road to the final next Friday, and I want to challenge you guys about the playoffs. So we're going to take a look at the playoff picture, I believe. Oh no, it is there.
There it comes.
So these are the options. So quarterfinal 1. Splyce Rocket.
Splyce Rocket. Do you want to talk about it specifically?
No, first I want to introduce. So quarterfinal 1, Splyce Rocket. Quarterfinal 2, Vitality H2K. And then possible semifinals, G2 versus one of the others. So what is like the first thought if you see this schedule?
I think Splyce is should destroy Rocket. I mean, it's not gonna be like 3-0.
I don't know if you just swore or if you just say oh, you said should. Sorry.
Should. I didn't. You know, I'm clean now. You know, after the F-bomb, I'm fine. You know.
Okay.
But like, I think Splyce should destroy Rocket. Like, they maximum should drop 1 game, because I do think that they basically play similarly, but on a higher level, if that makes sense. Whereas the Vitality HK matchup is actually a matchup I'm looking for.
So before we continue, I had a little bit of a challenge for you guys. We can pick these back up, and I think we'll pick these thoughts back up right now, because I want to do a bit of a 1v1 me, bro. Out of the quarterfinal teams.
I think you can take
out of the, well, you can stand up if you want.
Yeah, I was going to fight him.
Out of the quarterfinal teams, so you can't pick G2 or Fnatic, I want you to defend one team that you think will make it to finals for the sake of the argument.
Okay.
And you have 1 minute to do so.
Now you can start.
Timer is going to come in just a second. You can decide who wants to start. The superiorist analyst.
Well, we are tied, but the regular season one.
The regular season one.
See, I actually, it could be fun to be spicy and pick H2K, because I think they're a little bit of a dark horse in this race.
Yeah.
Problem for them is they come in as the 5th seed, which means if Splyce win their quarterfinal, H2K will face Fnatic in the semifinals. So that obviously hurts the chances.
Who do you pick?
I pick Splyce.
Splyce.
Which I think then is, for me, the easy one.
Okay, so then I will count you in. You have 1 minute to tell me why Splyce will be in the finals.
Or am I looking in the
I think you are in this one. We'll see. All right, Splyce, why will they be in the finals? Official, 3, 2, 1.
Splyce will be in the finals because I have full trust in a very large coaching staff to actually prepare for a best-of-5 properly. I think Splyce also have shown over multiple weeks now that they actually do have a lot of different carries on this team around topside, in the jungle and bot lane. I think today's game against G2 Esports, they showed some weakness in team fights, but that's not something we've seen very often. That's going to get fixed. They can rely on the macro as well that they can bring to the table. So overall, I just like the well-roundedness now that multiple members are stepping up, and I like the fact they bring a lot of smart people to actually prepare for the best-of-5.
All right. I actually am starting to think that 60 seconds is too much, because
really
you only need... It is really long. It's not really a challenge.
Logo. That's pretty cool.
More of these random things,
You're really
please?
convincing
They're also
right now.
playing in yellow and in the Tour de France. If you guys watch professional cycling, the yellow jersey
It's really good.
basically the one who wins, aka
Yeah, but
Denmark.
Splyce will win.
Yeah. So
Whatever.
I thought those were pretty good arguments. Is there any?
Especially the last one.
Is there any big holes in these arguments that you see that you want to talk
mean-
about? Amazing.
I mean, main hole here is that he's bringing the arguments.
That's a certain type of hole. Let's not.
I will add one myself. I'm slightly concerned about Niski when it comes to playing like traditional carries. Compared to some of the other mid laners in playoffs.
Well, let's
Perks,
look at
Suzuki,
who they will be
Caps.
facing to get there. He would be facing Blanc then and Perks.
Yeah, so I think especially in the semifinal, that could be like we saw in this game. Like Perks had much better game on Azir, and for Niski, I think when he's on the utility ones, he's good. But I think on the straight up carries, he will not be able to pull this team towards a trophy.
Anything to add, or do you want to go to your?
I'm
60
like
seconds?
I'm forced to pick G2 now.
No, you
you're
can't
not.
pick G2. You have to pick one. Rocket, Vitality, or
Non-quarterfinal team.
H2K.
Wait, really?
Yes.
What did you tell me backstage?
Okay,
about
so
Vitality?
no, but I can't do that on
you
camera.
can tell
No,
me
I
why they
can't
make
do
the
it on
final.
camera. It doesn't work because then I jinx it. Like
So, you don't want to pick the team you want to do well.
You can just tell me why they can make the final.
okay.
Who do you pick, Amazing?
I'll pick Vitality.
All right.
Look me in the eyes.
Are you
And it's
ready?
but it's gonna be tough because they're face fanatic, But yeah, I'm going.
All right.
Let's go.
3, 2, 1. Maurice is going for Vitality. Let's go.
So Vitality do have the ability to actually play a lot of sides. I think they're really familiar with the normal meta, which means that they can actually play on the level as Splyce can, and can actually play that side too. Where they control through the bot side and basically have those plays come in. While doing that, they can also split up and basically just have their support on a carry champion like Thresh to a certain extent, have the mid lane and mix it up a bit and basically carry solo and stop looking me in the eye. But the main point for me is that I do think that Splyce, in comparison to Vitality, for example, is too standard for their own good. So what I mean by that is that Vitality has the ability to actually bring in X factors and carries that haven't stepped up before. And some game, Mr. Gillies would step up and get an early gank. In another game, Jack Trolls would hit 15 hooks in a row and carry the game through that. So I don't think that on an individual level, Splyce, in comparison to Vitality, will have the same ability to do so.
All right. That's an interesting point
Only
of
agree
view.
with Jizuke on that one, specifically. I don't see many true packs with Jack Troll have more impact than Kobe or Kasing could have. Specifically, I agree with Jizuke. I think that's where they have the X factor that we can talk about.
I was forced to pick Vitality,
I know, I'm not blaming
It's like
you.
the
I'm not
rest is
blaming you.
just...
So-
You made
the
a
rest is
fine
doomed.
argument.
The rest is
My
doomed.
biggest concern with Vitality is I feel like, especially against the top teams,
Dark Horse.
every game's become super messy. It's not like, they get an early lead, clean. It's just like crazy, bam, 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 bam. Maybe they win, maybe not. And that to me just shows
But
a
is it better?
lack of...
Is it better for them or for the enemies? Because I actually make this argument that Vitality, if they just fix their macro issues,
But I
that
don't
they
think they
would
can.
be able to beat those teams handily, and they would have beaten Fnatic 2-0, for example.
I agree. If you play the perfect game, you win most of them. I don't think they can fix that, especially not just in a week.
I guess I have to declare the winner, but I can't. So we'll just see in the who gets into the final who's the winner of this particular
Well, what
argument.
if these two teams make the final
Well-
instead? Fnatic.
Yeah, that's true. Just before we move on about the quarterfinal teams and predictions, we have very big dark horse matchups in this one. Rocket is a huge underdog coming in versus Splyce, and H2K is also a huge underdog, maybe a
Actually, I
bit
don't
less
think-
versus Vitality. Agreed or not?
I actually don't think that HK is an underdog against Vitality. I think this matchup is really scary for Vitality, because I think that the matchup in itself is interesting because they play, I don't want to say similarly, but they have the same kind of strengths, if that makes sense. Where they can be just unpredictable, where they bring in things that you haven't seen before, and a lot of aggression in the early game, suddenly ganks that you shouldn't necessarily go for because the pathing is just off, whatever it is. So I think in terms of riskiness in early game, they match up really well.
The thing I like about that specific matchup for H2K is the fact that, as I said before, I don't think Vitality will very cleanly be able to close out games, even if even with early leads. I feel like H2K will always get to late game fights, and outside of that game yesterday, where they actually won the early game, that's still the main way for them to win, because Sheriff is playing out of his mind.
Unreal. Rocky, you have the split for you?
I think at this point with them, this Surge and him being the sole carry, as much as I want to give this to Jizuke based on the entire split, it is really hard not to put Sheriff on that vote.
It is very interesting. So we can talk about this forever and ever. Quick lightning round. Who wins the LCS spring split?
Fnatic is the easy one.
I mean, now you can say it.
I'll go out on a limb here and say the winner of Vitality and HK is actually going to make it to finals, but I think G2 is going to win.
Ooh, why do you have faith in G2 growing? Because they're not at that level now.
I don't, but like I don't know. For some reason, Fnatic, they're this team that looks great every split, and then suddenly do something in the semis, like at least like this iteration of the roster, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Like that they can't adapt to the opponent, and someone has prepared for them.
I think last year they had a coaching problem. I think this year Youngbuck has fixed that for them, which is going to be a giant change. We've already seen them play way more consistent now, which is going to be big for them in playoffs. I also think the fact that, one, there's no Sven and Mythi, which is in the past
pretty good for
Fnatic's
every
players.
other team.
And there is no Misfits in this playoff, which was their team last split, who identified how to beat Fnatic, destroyed them in the semifinal. Reckless said yesterday he was scared of them. They're not there. So I think Fnatic will have the advantage in terms of infrastructure.
They should have the advantage.
And they just have, they have the two best carries in the league at the moment. Plus, they're not playing dumb League of Legends. They're actually playing really smart.
And as opposed to any other team in the league, in the EULCS and in the playoffs at least, they could swap in a sub and have a new strategy, possibly?
I don't
Is that a thing or not?
I don't think that's too much, actually.
No, okay.
I think that
Top lane, especially at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, I take it back.
No, but I mean,
Swap in AD carry.
in an ideal world,
Weibo is actually a better AD carry than Reckless. Who knows?
if we just go, I'll just ignore that statement. If we just go by the stats and we go by what's safe, Fnatic should win. There's no contest about
They're
that.
the favorites for sure.
Yeah.
It is by no means locked, though, and I think our final is not going to be 3-0.
And what is exciting is that you can only think, because of how exciting the regular season has been and how up and down it's been for any team, hopefully this will also be reflected in the playoffs. But we'll have to see. But after our final week, we are also going to take a look at some of the LCS big plays. There's been a lot of them. And on Twitter, you sent us in your favorites. Here they are, brought to you by Acer Predator. First up, we were just talking about him. Fnatic's Reckless. He had a great year so far, but he is still looking to secure his first pentakill of the split. Not there yet. He came very close in their game yesterday against Giants, but in the end, it just wasn't enough.
Look at the damage.
Cataclysm comes out as well, and Boxer and Reckless just go unstoppable there. Fnatic are going to try and chase on towards the rest of Giants. The double knockback with the never move, the knockup from Caps. Guipo coming in for the side as well. There's just nothing you can do. There's the triple kill. Reckless gets the quadra, going for the penta. What a way to cap it up. But no! Steelback stops him in his track.
No! No! No!
Park my...
No!
That's all I've got. That's all I've got. Is that dead? Nice.
Yeah,
I'm peeping behind them. I'm peeping behind.
Oh shit.
Yeah, fed us. Chocolate.
I'm on one side. I'm gonna steal it.
No!
Park my...
No!
I can't believe that Caps is such a little... I'm gonna steal it. Funny thing, we had Reckless as a guest on the post-game lobby, and he said, you know, I didn't get that penta. I didn't get one since 2015. That's also the last time that we were competitive for the championship. So I feel like this is the moment I should get my penta. And
maybe that was a sign. He lost the penta. He's going to lose the semifinal. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
No,
also, Steelback was the one who just denied that penta from him.
Interesting.
That's
X-Files
petty
music
revenge
here,
right there.
Alrighty, next up. Earlier today, the Romanian duo Odoamne and Xerxes, they pulled off a big turnaround in the top lane versus Giants. At Aaron is a hippo. Said it right. Odoamne is a monster this game.
2 additional TPs actually. Niski can TP, Carsten can TP. There should be no counterfight, but a TP behind them right now.
All right, this is going to be Ruin coming to the fight. Odoamne goes golden thanks to the stopwatch. Let's bounce this used. Wow, Odoamne even takes down Joko. Now Ruin's in trouble because Niski's joined the fight. Odo gets the lifesteal and survives. That's a double kill for Odoamne.
Did we go one shot actually?
I have stopwatch. I mean, we can force fight if you want.
Guys, I'm top pushed. I'm pushed up. I am
Focus cannon. Okay, I've got W.
No play this guy.
15 seconds.
I got his barrel. I'm gonna tank tower. Just kill him. Top of the... Nice.
Top.
Guys, if this... Okay.
I mean, I don't think we have to fight, but... You guys have to be 2-1.
Guys, you guys do not have to...
I like that the bot lane is like, maybe we're fighting, who knows, something about the fight. We're on top lane, it's just like, we're just gonna 2v2 them right there.
Good
no
stuff.
one cares.
Good stuff from Oduamne. Nice when he's on fire, he's really on fire.
He's been
Unfortunately,
really good the last few
he has
weeks.
been really good the last couple of weeks. Excited to see what he can bring in the playoffs. And then in our final game of the regular season, G2 and Splyce, they battled it out for the second place. And G2 managed to secure it after winning a game-changing Baron fight 21 minutes into the game.
They're aware Winter's Bite will tag onto Kirk. Teleport starts to get channeled. Baron's low, 2,500. There's already in the pit. The challenge is there. Unstoppable. It's not being used yet. Baron's stolen. No, it's secured by G2. But in the ensuing fight, Wonder is trying to lock down Kobe. Kobe's getting pulled away. All of a sudden, Xerxes already down. No, Odo, first to run for his life. G2 Esports send their regards. Get themselves a double kill. Get themselves a Baron. And they're getting themselves more kills.
Yeah, go.
Okay,
Stop sack. I won't sack.
Okay, go.
Okay, stop. Just wait.
Kazak. Nice.
Zack. Stand on no jump. I have E5. Just stand on the side here.
Yeah.
A little bit of stunner.
I Predator, I chase. I can heal you.
Luck or skill?
Skill. With a tiny bit of luck.
I mean, with more skill, more luck comes, you know. That's how it works.
There you go.